All right.
Give me a second.
Yeah, just let me know when it is. Could actually find my.
We're live.
All right. Welcome in to the Creative Crypto Podcast, where we provide immersive, essential, and evergreen strategies for the novice cryptocurrency investor. How you doing? I am one half of your host. I am broke Boi Crypto. Some people call me BBC, but I totally understand if you don't want to. I've got Crypto Ewok here with me as well. And right now, for the first time ever, and Ewok, we didn't really talk about this, but I think it's apropos to say this. We are streaming for the first time live. So we've got our mugs on Twitter, on YouTube, everywhere. But also, this is kind of a 1-year podcast celebration. We started this podcast 1 year ago. A lot has changed since then, but including, people watching the stream may not know, but your beard is much more epic than it was a year ago. I'm certain of that. How you doing tonight?
I'm great, man. Happy 1-year anniversary.
Yeah,
I know you know the reason for the beard, but it started in March when we were in Vegas for the Hex get together conference, and I know we were at that point waiting for PulseChain, and several people said, "I'm not going to shave until PulseChain launches." So here we are.
Now, is that just beard hair, or is that kind of an all systems go type thing as far as any hair?
Just the beard.
Just the beard. Okay, just the beard. Well, I think we might be waiting a little bit longer, or everybody's waiting a little bit longer than they thought they would for the release of Richard Hart's PulseChain, but it is still on the way. We get updates whenever we can, obviously. But yeah, welcome in the first live episode of the Creed of Crypto podcast. We got a lot to cover today. As of tonight, we are recording this on today's Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday night, September the 14th. We have got the Ethereum Merge officially, supposedly taking place tonight later on. If you are in the Eastern United States, I think it's going to be about 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. is what we just decided on, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Right around
Yeah,
there.
sure. Yeah. Any one of these moments here. So we're going to get into that a little bit and our thoughts on it. We have had some interesting price action over the last week or so here on BTC. As we are recording right now, we are sitting at just over 20K. Looks like about 20.2. Dipped under 20K a little bit earlier today. And now we're back at it. We had a big red candle the other day, kind of going into the latest CPI data that we got and after the announcement. So why don't we start there, Ewok? We're going to get into a lot of stuff again, the ETH Merge. We've got some updates in regards to Hex and some of the awesome couple of projects that are being built on the PulseChain. I'm really excited to talk about Hedron tonight. That's something we're going to do, as well as Icosa. So really excited about that. But I want to talk to you first, Ewok, about we got the latest CPI data, so the latest inflation data. The last reading that we got back in July, we did come down from 9.1% supposedly to 8.6, I believe it was at that time. And just the other day, everybody was kind of pricing in. I don't know how you figured this out, but apparently people in general were thinking we would be in the low 8s or at 8% exactly. The figure came out at 8.3, which was enough of a difference to send the market ablaze, apparently. And we had a big red candle. The market has come down, and people are bracing for more pain. So what do you think about this reading? I know it doesn't really mean that much to you. I guess for the remainder of the year, just solely based on the CPI data, what do you think this paints really global markets as well as crypto? And do you think inflation continues to steadily go down in the U.S. here? Or what are you thinking about this reading?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are just gone haywire. I'm not sure. I saw railways are about to strike. I believe that's tomorrow if the unions don't get some things in order with their time off, and that could put a huge strain on supply chain. As you know, that's obviously what I do for a living, but it's bad, and it's not going to get better. We have not felt max pain yet. And I think in this situation, we're going to have to feel it across the board, not just crypto.
Right.
As you know, it's going to be completely everywhere, I think
Yeah.
things are going to get somewhat decimated and bring everybody back to the, back to earth a little bit.
I think so too. And, at some point, I think some of this, everything's all priced in and everything. I think that has to kind of end at some point. Obviously, you and I still expect more downside in this market over the rest of the year. We've been kind of banging that drum for a long time now. I said on the last couple of podcasts, kudos to you, because a calendar year ago, you were kind of predicting that we would be in this region, if not lower. And here we are. So, I mean, we are getting there. But yeah, I mean, I still think there's going to be more downside here. I do think inflation steadily does decrease, but the bigger event that we have coming up here in a week, I was going to say the end of September, it's a week from today now, is the next Fed meeting, the next FOMC meeting, where largely, you could argue it's priced in, whatever, people are expecting another 75-point rate hike. That, I think, is going to be the catalyst for the big leg down to get us really into the territory that you and I have been thinking we're going to go for a while here. A lot of people have been calling for as low as 10K, 11K, 12K. Some people 14, 16, whatever. The lowest so far in this bear market was back in June when we were at about 17 and a half. Are you in agreement with me on that? Because I do think this move next week, and I hate that we're so tied to whatever Jerome Powell says now in this market, but I really think that's going to be the catalyst for the last big leg down. And I'm not saying it's going to be like boom, boom, and we're back up. I'm saying we're going to go way down in the week or coming weeks, maybe days even, after that announcement. And I think, lasting into November, I think you're going to get a lot of shots at this, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I think this is going to be the big catalyst for the final leg down.
I agree. I think it's the start of it. It's funny. Richard Hart posted earlier today something about, isn't it funny that somebody that we didn't even elect gets to decide all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Jerome Powell was not an elected position. It's just, it's kind of ironic how that works out. Something else I was thinking about too is, not just you and I have started talking about it a lot, but a lot of other streamers have really started talking about, we've all become macro experts, which none of us are, but it does affect it. And it's funny how you think about it and how small the crypto market itself really is. I think, what is it? What's the total market cap? Maybe a trillion or so.
Yeah.
It's really not that much money in the global scheme of things. It doesn't have to be this way. I just wonder sometimes, back to what I was saying, is we've all become such macro speaking that are we convincing everybody that this is going to happen even more? The more that everyone talks about this macro and everything's going down, if everybody stopped talking about it, would it still really happen? It's one of those things, you hear it on the news and everybody hears it. It's programming, obviously. I just wonder, it makes me curious as to, because this is what we're hearing about so much, and maybe that's why it's not really a surprise either, because everybody's really anticipating it. I don't know.
Kind of like
just a thought.
I know. No, I get what you're saying. Kind of like a chicken and the egg type thing. It's like, is this happening because there's so much attention to it? I mean, I think there's some credence to that, but I think for the most part, I mean, we are, like it or not, I mean, this is kind of what has to happen with the adoption of crypto and Bitcoin into some of these larger entities and stuff. We are seeing people treat the crypto sector like these big companies, like tech stocks, and for better or worse right now, that does kind of mean that the crypto market is going to be kind of tied to those equities, and whereas in the past, Bitcoin was not really in concert with the legacy market. Well, here we are now, and that's kind of where we are now. The intriguing part and the cool part is still that the returns, obviously, within crypto are, we think, vastly still going to outweigh anything you would get in the legacy markets or anything. So when we do rip to the upside someday again, we figure that crypto will do it first and a lot hotter, obviously, than everything else.
Volatility is always the price you pay for massive gains like that.
Exactly.
And as long as Grayscale is still trading at a at a discount, it's not going to go up. People aren't going to buy it on the market when they can get the Grayscale Bitcoin for 35% off, So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely do think this announcement next week. And are you expecting 75? I mean, I know that that's pretty much what everybody is saying. I've even seen some people throw out 100 basis points out there. I know at the end of August, I always feel dirty saying this, but they had the Jackson Hole meeting, and I know that Powell sounded pretty hawkish at that for the most part, and it made people expect like, okay, they're really going to put their foot down on this next time around. So I think 75 is a certainty. Do you think there's do you agree with that? Do you think there's an outside shot at 100? Or, I mean, it seems like they're really taking this seriously at this point.
I don't think it matters. I think it'll be 75
between those two.
But and I don't think one or the other, isn't going to matter a whole lot at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think it really matters?
No. Well, long term, no. Short term, yes. Because if we see everybody is expecting 75 right now, if we get 100, I think that we very quickly start to escalate or de-escalate, I guess, to the new low of this bear market. I mean, I think if 100 gets announced that day, I think we go at least to mid 17Ks literally on that day. I think that we can get right back to that. Just because, and again, I'm just talking short term. I think regardless, like you just said, and I know you're a more long-term thinker, and so am I, really. A lot of people are living this market day to day right now.
Sure.
A lot of people really are all the time because it's crypto. But I think that because they're living that way, that if we get 100, we are going to see massive downside quickly. But I do, if you were to ask me, 75 versus 100, where does that leave us on, say, November 5th? I don't think that's going to change anything. I think
I don't either.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed before, it is tied to the S&P, the other markets as well. And that would be affected by the difference, I think, as well, which would in turn bring the Bitcoin and everything else price down. So
yeah, definitely. So that is where we are in the markets. And it's, Ewok and I were talking before we even started tonight. We're getting to that point of the bear market, and I think you and I also personally, with how we've talked on this podcast, that it's getting to that boring part. You know what I mean? We're kind of getting to that part where there's not tons of stuff going on. A lot of the bad drama has seemed to somewhat subside here for a little bit. I mean, May was really the hellacious month with the Terra Luna stuff, and then, Voyager and 3 Arrows or whatever it's called, and all these, Celsius and everything over the last couple of months. We've seen that kind of settle down a little bit. Now, some people are still out there reporting on like Do Kwon, whatever's going on with him in South Korea right now and all this different stuff. I mean, to me, that's just kind of extra drama. I don't think that's anything we really need to get into that much. But it seems like as far as like the disasters, as far as companies just going, up in flames has kind of subsided. I mean, we're not done here yet, but let me ask you this, because this is leading me to this. I'm talking myself into this a little bit. I know I follow this guy. I love Big Cheds on Twitter. He's a day trader with crypto and some legacy stocks and stuff like that. But he has been saying for some time that he is really looking, and I know you're aware of this, Ewok, from past bear markets, and I'd like to get your perspective here, that there's always some kind of massive kind of capitulation event, like something really big where like a lot of the market actually thinks Bitcoin is dead again. Now, I don't know if maybe we're past that precedent. Maybe that can't happen anymore because of, how long it's been around at this point, even though it's not really been that long, and we've seen it recover so greatly. Do you agree, though? Does there have to be some major event? And I don't know at this point what that would be. Michael Saylor getting out of Bitcoin, or I don't know what it would be, but do you agree? How do you feel about the actual sentiment, regardless of all this other macro stuff? What do you think about like sentiment with crypto right now?
Well, don't you think Mt. Gox coins could be an event like that? I mean, and he's right. There's always been a certain event that took place that, once that sentiment of Bitcoin is dead, starts to happen, you're really approaching or at the bottom. You start hearing it, more people, repeat it, and the sentiment becomes, yeah, it's over this time. At that point, then you've reached bottom pretty much. Again, once that discount goes away, that will happen as well. There's a lot of events that will play in part at the bottom. But yeah, there's usually an event. And I think I had said that before. We were talking about all the events leading up to a major crash and what they could be. And I said, there's probably one we don't know about.
Right.
So who knows? I mean, we've discussed it in previous streams, but I agree. Something will happen that'll be a major capitulation event that'll trigger a massive sell-off all at once. You see one red candle, and that's it. And then hopefully it'll chop around. Here's the thing. This, like you mentioned before, it's boring. It's very boring to sit here and watch this, and that's why people get so enticed on these scams that come out and start paying a little bit of yield, and it's fun and exciting. And then guess what? You find out there's a glitch in the contract. I'm not going to name the project at all because I don't want people to go look at it or even invest in it. But there was a mistake in the coding where the stuff that was supposed to go into the liquidity pool was actually going to somebody else's wallet. And the contract is supposedly locked, and somehow that was missed. I'm not sure.
Right.
But that's how things like that happen. Today I see Celsius too. Mashensky's talking about doing this all over again. And
my God,
I just don't understand how people are that dumb, A, or B, how he can get away with even thinking about being a custodian of people's money again. Like, how's that allowed? I just baffles me.
And how could, like you said, how are people that dumb? How could you really want to get back involved with something like that? I mean, I'm friends.
Well, there's always new people
to begin with.
There's always new people coming in that don't know what happened there, but it would take 2 seconds to Google Celsius and
Google
see.
It. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know do your own research goes a long way with somebody that's not very brilliant, but it doesn't take long to see the history of Celsius and what happened the first time. So.
Well, though, you make a good point, and I want to get back to, remind me if I forget, because I want to get back to the Mt. Gox thing you brought up a minute ago. But I think you talked about like new people getting into the market. And I do think there is this thing with maybe kind of like old heads that are into old school finance that are like, I'm interested in this crypto thing. And, I don't want to tell a wife or anything, but I'm going to put like some of our savings into this or whatever. And they fool around and have no idea what they're doing and end up with something like a Celsius or, like I've helped people like get onboarded before, like in my personal life, that were like, man, you know what? I'm not going to be ageist here. But some of them are older, but I mean, I don't think that even matters. There's plenty of young people that have no freaking clue about any of this stuff and could never but don't understand anything about crypto. Noobs getting in and just thinking like, oh yeah, here's this platform where I can just earn interest, and they don't even understand anything about private keys. And sometimes it gets, monotonous, I think, to me anyway. I don't know if you ever feel this way, Ewok. And, you talk about Richard Hart. I hear him saying it all the time too, obviously. But just hearing the phrases like not your keys, not your crypto, it kind of becomes cliche. And it's like, yeah, I mean, no shit.
It does. But people don't understand how important it really is, right?
Right.
Is that where you were going?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because there's always new people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, talk about some of the people that you could, because you've had them in your personal life too. I mean, like there is a big learning curve. I don't think people even understand that at all. I don't think they even understand the concept of having a wallet. I don't think they understand the concept, why you do that. I know they don't understand the concept of security with the wallet, where they think that they can just put it in their my passwords document on their desktop or something like that. What stuff do you run?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. What kind of stuff do you run into anytime you've tried to get people onboarded into crypto, just little things that maybe we take for granted that they don't understand. I think it's a good time to talk about it here in the bear
Well,
market.
sure.
Plus, things are boring. So
Yeah. Well, I think one of the most common things that has happened is if somebody hears me talking about crypto and they're like, "Oh, I have some crypto. I trade on Robinhood," and I'm
oh
like,
yeah,
Well, you don't really have crypto then, because it's it's a derivative that's not real crypto. You can't send it anywhere." Now, I don't know if Robinhood fixed that or they changed the way they were. I mean, I haven't been on there in forever. Someone
yeah.
said they were talking about changing it to where you actually could send and receive your funds, but I haven't heard one way or another. But that, that's one of the funny things that happens more often than not. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, I have some Shiba Inu or some Dogecoin or something like
Exactly.
that they heard Elon talk about." Um, but yeah, I mean, anytime that I do onboard somebody, it's definitely security first. This is why we're creating this wallet, and I explain kind of as much as I can without overwhelming somebody, because it's a lot of information as well to somebody new. They're like, "Oh my God, this is too much," and you
Right.
don't want to make it overly difficult, or they just lose interest, and you cloud their brain with way too much information that they don't need to know right away. But eventually, you've got to get them down that path and tell them why we're doing what we're doing. So
Right. And unfortunately, right now, there's probably not too many new people coming to the market because of the bear market. And that's just the way it is. It's this old,
unfortunately,
yeah, it's just how it's gone through time. I mean, people are not going to flock to the market right now, and they're going to whenever, NFL players are changing their handle to Aaron Rodgers.eth and stuff like that, like I said before. So yeah, I want to get, so we were talking about the capitulation thing. And is there going to be like one, excuse me, isolated event that marks like the bottom of this bear market, or like the mass capitulation and everything? You brought up the Mount Gox thing, and no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I could see something like that being part of the event, but to me, it's like, how do you know that that's isolated, or that it's not like there's a button that's pressed and all the Mount Gox coins are sold at one time? I mean, I don't think it's going to be like that anyway. How do
I
you
don't
even
either.
know it's happening? I mean, maybe we will. We'll probably see leaks of documentation and stuff like that. But how do you
Well,
know? I mean, it could be spread over there. Go ahead.
there's plenty of people that are well-known streamers that have been in Bitcoin that long that are waiting for
Mhm.
coins. So I know we'll hear about it when it happens. They'll definitely make it publicly known that they have gotten their coins. Now, we don't know how it's going to be distributed, whether it's going to be all at once, if it's going to be slowly, you know, 100 addresses a day will receive theirs. Who knows? Like, I don't know, the ins and outs of it, that would lead us to any kind of pattern or how it's going to be distributed. But if they were
Mhm.
smart, they wouldn't release it all on the same day. But then again, that person that gets it on the last day, if a bunch of people sell, they're going to be pissed off that they didn't get it as early as the first people, and now the price is $3,000 lower or whatever it might be because everybody
Mhm.
else dumped. So I don't know. The fair way to do it is just everybody gets it all at once, I think, and then they can't come back and say anything like that. So who knows? I
Right.
don't know how it'll work out, but we'll see.
That's kind of the thing, because and yeah, as far as people actually getting the coins back, I think there's maybe some more exactness to like when that could happen, who's getting them when. We'll hear leaks and stuff like that. But as far as like individuals potentially selling it off, I mean, I think that could be a multi-month ordeal. Like I said, I mean, I think we could be seeing that kind of happen throughout the course of the end of the year. So I don't know that we're going to be able to point to it exactly. And I don't know that it's like a mass capitulation thing, or I don't think of it that way anyway, because we all already think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? I know everybody keeps talking about stuff being priced in, but people have been talking about Mount Gox all year long. We've
You
been
can't price
expecting
that in.
this.
You can't price a bunch of
I,
selling action into anything. I mean, that's really what will bring a market value down, is everybody selling at the same time. So I don't know
right.
how you can figure that in. There's really no way.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know. It's just such an obscure thing that I'm like, how do you know that it's the Mount Gox coins that are bringing the prices down? I guess that's my thing. I just don't know. Um, I get maybe some specific news around the Mount Gox thing happening, like maybe like you're saying, like all these people talking about it, or like some documentation that literally on this day, this is when they're going to X amount of people, and then you could, reasonably say, oh man, that's when they're going to get sold off. Maybe that. I guess I'm just trying to think of like singular, isolated, happens on this day event, like back in May with Terra Luna. And again, I know that doesn't happen every day, but something like that where it's just like, holy shit, like all happens in a day and then has ripple effects for the next few days. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll give you an example of the last bear market. I believe China banned Bitcoin. That was a
Mm,
massive capitulation event that really affected the whole market. So I think Cheds was probably talking something similar to that, where Venezuela, who may have been using Bitcoin at one time, stopped. They ceased to, you know what I mean? That they're
mm,
such a small country, it really doesn't matter. But
right.
that's the type of event that he's talking about, where they shut off the miners in Russia or something. That could be huge. It really could. So
Right.
it's more on that scale. But like I said, there's no way to figure in or bake in a price of potential sells, because that will truly bring the market down. You can't really adjust or figure that in. So
Yeah.
that's the one thing with that.
Yeah, and you can't really predict it. And that's actually part of an event like that happening, is it being unpredictable, I think.
Yep.
Like something could really come out of nowhere and kind of slap us in the face. So, yeah, I definitely think that we're going to see more downside, obviously, but I really do believe that this September 21st rate hike we're going to see is going to be the beginning of the end, so to speak, which in a way I think should be looked at positively because we've already had what are probably going to be generational prices to buy a lot of these assets. And then now it's going to get even better. And we're going to be heading towards the end of this bear market, which I don't think has really been that bad of one, all things considered. Um, you've been through a couple now anyway. Um, before we transition into some hex stuff and everything, how do you feel like this one in terms of length and kind of attitude and everything? Has been different because obviously we've had more people into crypto than we've ever had before as the market continues to grow. And I think mass enthusiasm was probably, well, obviously sometime last fall, almost a year ago now. We were, and it's only, we're 10 months removed already from being at 69K in November
Yeah.
of 2021.
Well, we're
I
actually
think,
a lot more
uh,
than that removed from when Richard Hart actually called the top, and that was in April. Was it April or May?
April,
When we
yeah, I
hit
think April.
65,000 the first time.
Hmm.
So that's the big difference for me, is it's a lot longer, for what I see, as the bear market. He called the top at 65. It ended up doing one day at 69 and then dumping from there. So it was really a, false, what do you say? Judas candle is what it was called.
Right.
But so actually, if you take the top from there, then yeah, we're 10 months from there. But when you look at it as the other top that was made, it is a substantially longer time than previous bear market cycles that were traditionally
Mhm.
about a year. So
And it just it feel it's so different now. I mean, like you remember too in the Super Bowl last year. Um, it was the crypto bull. I mean,
Mhm.
all of these different exchanges. I remember the crypto.com one with Matt Damon and stuff like that. Like all of
Yep.
these Fortune favors the brave or whatever it was. Like all these crypto exchanges, Coinbase actually had that weird ad. I don't know if you remember it, where they had like the thing moving around the screen.
Yeah.
All these exchanges had all these ads in the Super Bowl. We are so far removed from that. And I think those people with those exchanges mishandled their funds so much. Even they were guilty of like, oh, yeah, it's up only. This is going up forever. And man, since
Yeah.
I don't even know how that happened in February, there was already a lot of blood in the street. I don't even know how that was happening. But yeah, and now here we are now. So, I mean, yeah, it's quite a fall from grace, but I mean, how do you think it compares to past bear markets overall, I guess,
Well,
feeling
when
wise?
things are going up, there is that euphoric feeling that you almost feel like it's going to go on forever.
Yeah,
Even though we really know that it doesn't. Um, but you forget when things are going that good, you really do forget about that last bear market. It's funny how psychological it really is, but it's true. You know, for anybody to think, it's every day. I look, it's higher, it's higher, it's higher. This isn't going to stop. It's great. Um, you need that kick in the ass to come back to earth and realize that there's still cycles no matter no matter what. Now,
yeah,
eventually, as more people get in the market, it will be less of a drop, I think. Um, but it'll also be less of a run in the bull market as well. You know,
right.
it'll
Yeah,
even out a little bit. They're not going to be as volatile up and down, and the more people that get in, the easier it is to kind of stabilize a little bit. It'll still happen, but
right.
just not as violent.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, so that's what we've got coming up the rest of the year. We're going to be here, I think, for quite some time. I think probably into most. I guess the final question I'll ask you just on the market cycle here is when do you think, first off, what do you define as the end of the bear market and the start of the next bull market? Is there a lot of the TA guys would probably use like if we start breaking a long term trend like the 200-week moving average very consistently or something like that, or just closing above it week in, week out all of a sudden, and you could the long that the we're basically beating the long-term trend again. Would it be something like that, or what for you really marks like the start of the next bull market? Is it just when we've hit bottom and prices are now stagnant, or when we are consistently starting to go up?
I think when it consistently evens out is considered the end.
Mhm.
However, from the bottom until the actual bull market happens, I mean, when you look at the charts of any cycle, the massive run up usually happens within a few weeks. I mean, it
Right,
really takes off exponentially in those last couple weeks. And that's where, actually it goes parabolic at that point.
hmm,
Um, Otherwise you're chopping around for quite a long time. And it does get boring, but at least you've stopped going down. So until we get to that euphoric feeling where it's really headed up at a accelerated rate, um, we've got a ways to go. I mean, you're
right.
talking into probably late 2023 before we even see somewhat upward momentum, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. I was talking about it in one of my videos on the Broke Boy Crypto YouTube channel the other day. I think we are going to be in that kind of area for most of 2023.
Mhm.
And yeah, you just got to keep being patient. But I mean, it's one of those things where like this is why, and we've talked about this last few weeks. I mean, this is when you absolutely need to be building. This is when you have to be doing other things in your life other than just looking at the charts every day, to drum up that extra dry powder to get in at these prices. It is so valuable. I don't think people realize, and you mentioned this a few weeks ago with Hex specifically, but you can do it with any crypto really, as far as this goes, is how easily you can lower your cost basis if you were buying leading up to the top of the last bull market. I mean, people don't really understand math sometimes as far as like, let's just take Hex, for example. If you were buying Hex at 40, 45, 50 cents a year ago, and right now you have the opportunity today to buy it at 3.5 cents, it was as low as like 2.9 cents weeks ago for a little bit. Talk about how easily you can really lower your overall cost basis right now. Because I mean, some of these coins, I mean, like anything that you are, and I will say this, anything that you are long term convicted in, I would put that as in crypto terms, probably 5+ years conviction in. Talk about how easily that you can lower your cost basis right now at these prices.
Yeah, I forget what the example was. I think it was 30 or 40 cents if you had put roughly $10,000 in. We're going to just use that as a rough number, even
Mhm.
or a thousand. Let's say $1,000. You put $1,000 in at 30 or 40 cents, and then it had dropped down to, I think at that point, 5 or 6 cents. Maybe
Mhm.
it was 3 or 4, whatever it was. If you had bought in another thousand at that point, your average cost basis would have come down to about 8 or 9 cents, not halfway between the 30 and the, you know what I mean? Most people think,
Mhm.
well, it cuts it in half. But it really doesn't. Your average cost goes down, I think it's 60 or 70%. Um,
Yeah.
eh, the lower you go, the higher the rate of your average buy-in, because you can get that much more. Which in turn then makes it, when it goes back up, you're in profit a lot sooner than
Right.
if you just wait. Because waiting sucks. You might as
Yeah.
well at least try
Right.
to improve your position, if you believe that it's actually going to do something. I mean, there are some projects that start and they dip and they dip and they dip and probably won't come back. However, Hex is a lot different because it does have the community around it. Our fearless leader, Richard Hart, who's improving other things, continuing to build. He didn't just disappear after the project or product took a nice 85-95% dip. Um,
Mhm.
so, if it's got market fit and you can buy in at these rates, you're going to help yourself long term tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's on anything that, again, that you are really invested in long term. It's so important to be buying at these prices and not just ignoring the market. This is when you should be most active.
Mhm.
Real quick, because I don't even want to talk about it, and I don't think you probably do either, and everybody else is, and I don't really care about it. But this ETH merge, it is obviously good for ETH. I think we agree.
It's
It's
good for
good
the
for
environment.
crypto. Exactly. Yes, it's good for crypto and yeah, the environment as a whole. It's all good, but as we've been talking about for some time, uh, there's a lot of misnomers around the merge, and a lot of people think that this is going to mean like lower fees, quicker network speed right now, and all this stuff. None of that is really true in the short term. So I don't want to say it's like a nothing burger or anything like that. It certainly is something. I think it's just something that we're going to have to wait to see the long term effects of, which will eventually come. But as far as the price of ETH, we already did a 2x from the bottom solely based on the news that the merge was going to happen
Mhm.
right now. Okay. That's happened over the last couple of months here. So, I mean, we were at like 875 for Ethereum. They went up to 2,000 already,
Yeah.
for a short period of time, and it has dipped back down. Right now, we're still almost to 2x from the bottom. So there's no more for everybody that wonders at all still about this. There's no more price appreciation, I don't think, for ETH right now based on anything to do with the merge. The only thing we're going to get is downside action, and it's just going to be its ETH's natural correlation to the rest of the crypto market. I think likely after the FOMC announcement last week, and we're probably going to retest those lows. I think if anything, ETH may not go as low as it would have once gone, without the news of the merge. But I don't think we get any more positive price action really post merge for Ethereum, other than just its natural. The market is going up a little bit today, other than its natural rise with the rest of the market. But what do you think about
Yep.
all that, Ewok?
No, I agree. I think this is a sell the news event. Um, there are, like you said, a bunch of people out there that think they're going to get a lot of stuff. Not now. Not until later down the road, where this does set them up possibly for higher throughput, for lower fees, for um, I don't know if they're going to. There's still a net positive, even with fee burning. They're not. They're still creating more than they're burning, so it is still an inflationary thing. Um, who knows what's going to happen when the miners decide they're going to fork off their um, ETH chain that continues to rely on proof of work. We'll see how that goes. That could be interesting. I mean, I'm more excited for that, to see how that all plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Because technically, if the chain splits, you're going to have identical chain state, I believe, which means a copy of Hex for us on that chain too.
Right.
So
Right.
now we could have three brands of Hex on 3 different chains. Could be interesting. I think the one with the miners though is short-lived. So who knows? Maybe some profit taking is due. We'll see how that goes. But I wouldn't want to sell it all just in case something strange happens where ETH 2.0 doesn't work so well. Who knows? Something else I was considering too is, Richard at one point was very adamant about beating them to the punch, releasing PulseChain before ETH 2.0 comes out. But now that ETH 2.0 will come out first, I wonder if it makes it easier on the coders or the devs. Because I know part of what they were kind of working on was fixing all the bugs and crap that was in the BSV chain, which does rely on proof of stake, validators, things like that. I wonder if they'll maybe circle back and incorporate now that they only have to. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it could be,
definitely.
It could be interesting. I'm not sure if it'll play a part in speeding things up or not. We'll see.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Sorry, I was just retweeting the show out again. But
we had one viewer pop in earlier there. I saw one viewer.
The one right now is me, so don't get too excited there.
But, okay. So
right now, anyway.
They're flooding in. Here they come.
Yeah, they're flooding in. We're picking up speed here. But yeah, I do agree with your point, though. I mean, you would think that there would be less stress. I mean, at this point, what is there really for devs to stress about? You know what I mean? I don't think there's really much to worry about. The merge is happening. Who cares, really? I mean, the people that are excited about PulseChain are going to remain excited about PulseChain. That's not really going to change.
As they should be, because they're going to get lower fees. They're going to get higher throughput. They're going to get faster blocks. There's a lot more of positive with PulseChain than there is with 2.0, other than, it's changing from proof of work to proof of stake. That's all.
Right.
Nothing changes with ETH at all. So there's a lot more to look forward to. Yeah,
I think so too. And we've kind of just naturally segued into the kind of hex portion of our show here. So, I get sick of trying to predict like pulse dates or anything like that. But it does seem at this point, I mean, do you think it's something we're probably looking at into 2023 now, or what do you think the plan is? I know people are trying to, game theory this thing and listen to the secret code coming from Richard's mouth and stuff and figure out what he's exactly saying. And just the other day, I saw somebody write a whole dissertation on how it's definitely going to be like November or something like that. So do you have an opinion at this point, or you're just like, hey, when it happens, it happens?
I would like to see November. I think that maybe what they're shooting for, obviously sooner is better, but if there's still bugs that they're trying to fix, they're not going to put it out. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Right.
They're not going to take the chance to release it before it's truly battle tested and ready. I do know that they just added limit orders to Pulse X exchange. Did you see that?
I did see that. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Pretty cool that they put that, they merged that in there and got that working on the testnet. I mean, testnet is running perfect. It's fun. If you're bored, that's where you should be. Don't go investing money into crap that you don't know about. Get in there and play around and get good at it, so that when this stuff means something, you know what you're doing. Play around with liquidity providing, play around with farming, the incentive token. There's all kind of cool stuff in there, man. It's crazy, and you can play around. You can get free Pulse on the freepulse.io. There's still the faucet that works. Trade. Try your hand at trading and see how well you do before you play around with. I mean, it's a great opportunity to wreck yourself and realize
Yeah.
that you suck at it, and you don't cost yourself anything,
Right. That's kind of what I was going to say too right now is like there's going to be so many people that do so many will end up being dumb things at the actual launch of PulseChain, just ratio trading that you might as well just get it out of your system now. So
Yeah.
whenever the day actually comes, you can just kind of sit tight, let things kind of weed themselves out for a week or two, before you actually dip your toe in the water or anything. Because I think that's going to be a big thing. There's going to be this, people are going to feel like they need to get all this action in, or like, okay, I don't have enough pulse. I need to get to, I don't have enough pulse X. I need to get, and it's like, just wait a little bit. Like, just let this shake out because you might be doing something real colossally dumb and you don't even know it yet.
Don't even realize it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I
Right.
have a feeling people are going to do that. They're going to ape into stuff. And, typically on launch of products, there is a sell off at the beginning, especially with how long people have had to wait. Not everybody's as patient as we are for it. I want it to be ready. I want it to be perfect. I don't need it tomorrow.
Right.
I know when we sacrificed, we got a hell of a deal. That in itself saved us a lot of downside pain. Um, so I'm tickled that I got in when I did and preserved that value of what it was then, before it was 3 cents. So
Right.
I want it to be ready. I want it to be perfect, bulletproof, battle tested, the best that it can be, for that reason. Because we've gone through enough drama and issues and problems and just people saying scam, 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 that
Right.
if it's not ready, it's going to be problems. And they know that. That's why they're making it, right. It's got to be right.
Right. Yeah,
So
for as much shit as, and we've said this, for as much shit as Richard talks, rightfully so, and I think he's earned it. You can't release something and have there be a problem. It just cannot happen.
well, not
So,
him.
you know,
Other people do it and get away with it all the time.
well,
Um,
yes, yeah, yeah, but he's made a living. Well, not literally, but he is known
yeah,
for number one, his good product that has never run flawlessly so
yep.
far, and talking crap on all the ones that don't, which are the majority of them, and he's totally right. But I'm just saying you can't be that guy and then
Yes.
have a failed product. So I totally understand where he's coming from, and it's like, hey, it's going to take as long as it takes.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
I want to get into Hedron a little bit. I've been really excited about this recently, and starting to actually understand what it is. For anybody that doesn't know, it's another coin that's going to be in the Pulse ecosystem. It's been around already since, man, when was that initial, when you were able to mint Hedron originally? Was that March, I believe, of this year? I think. I, th-
no,
I
I
think
think
it
it was
was March.
before that.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Well,
I
earlier
don't
this year.
remember when Hedron launched, actually.
Okay, there. If you go to the Hedron chart, which I may do in a moment here, and we'll see. I'm pretty sure it was March, but so basically, it's helping provide liquidity to hex stakes, which is really interesting because hex stakes are not liquid. Obviously, I mean you have coins staked. And Hedron just provides a lot of interesting things, including these hex stake instances where you can actually on the Hedron platform create hex stakes as I didn't even understand this until recently, but create a hex stake instance through Hedron. And if you do it that way, you actually get, I use the term get loosely, but you have access to all of the Hedron that you would eventually earn throughout your hex stake immediately if you do a stake that way. So if you do even like a 55 X stake or something like that, all of the Hedron that you would accrue over those 50 years, you have access to immediately. And if you decide to use it or anything, it has to be essentially paid back. But I just discovered that you could do that the other day. I wasn't aware of
Right.
that.
Yeah. It was the very
Yeah,
first platform that came out that you could take a loan out, against your hex stake. Not only that, but once you do create the HSI, you can transfer it.
hmm
Before, when you created your hex stake, it's locked. You can't do anything with it. So if that wallet were to get hacked or whatever, you can't move it. Somebody has access to the wallet, they have access to your stakes. However, the cool thing with the HSI is not only can you borrow against your future gains, um, keep in mind you got to pay it back, or it goes up for auction and you lose it. So be very, very careful of that. But you can also transfer it. So people are giving them as gifts. If you want to give a nephew or a niece an HSI as a birthday gift and transfer it to a wallet that's different than what you own, you can do that as well. It becomes a hex staked NFT essentially. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, what Hedron is, though, the Hedron token itself, what it is if you have native hex stakes that are already made, it will take the days served multiplied by the, I believe it's B shares, because obviously if you have a T share, it's 1,000 B shares. And then if you claimed it in the first 100 days, they had this program where every 10 days the multiplier came down by 1. So over 100 days, it started at a multiplier of 10. 10 days, it was down to 9, 8, 7. After 100 days, it was gone. But a lot of people locked in that multiplier at 9 and 10. So now they're getting the days served times the B shares times the multiplier. So there were people out there that were big dolphins, sharks, according to their staker app, that were minting hundreds of millions of Hedron. And that was one of the big problems that a lot of people saw from the beginning, was the oversupply. It's just going to take forever to go through the supply, and people are just going to keep minting it and selling it daily. When they have that big of a bag, minting a couple 100 million a day was nothing. Now, the one use case for Hedron at the beginning was, if you remember how we said you could borrow against your HSI, if you didn't pay it back, it would go up for auction, and then you had to use Hedron to buy it. When you bought it, those Hedron get burned. But that process was so slow compared to how many Hedron that were out there. There was really no mechanism to stop people from just minting it and selling it. So it was almost a continuous negative price pressure, right? So the thing that just happened recently was the Icosa brand, and the ability to now stake your Hedron and earn Icosa, and then you can on the Icosa that you earn, stake that as well and earn more of the Icosa. So there's more properties now for locking it up, for slowing that down. And the more that you have, the longer you have to lock it up. I forget what the rate is. If you have a small amount, I think you only have to lock it up for 30 days.
That's right. Yeah.
If you have I don't know, couple billion, I know that you have to lock it up for 90 days.
I think it goes up to like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
I believe, like up to 180 days or so.
Yeah, I believe that. And then you can add to it. But when you add to it, it resets that timer. So you can continuously add to your stake. You can't take away from it. However, you can add to it, and then it resets that timer for another 90 days, 60 days, whatever it might be. So it's pretty cool. We are going to see, there was the Watsa event that was a one-time, kind of like last man standing, chicken, whatever you want to call it. Everybody is in this pool, and to get in the pool, you had to create an HSI. Those will then be, I believe they were burned. I forget the details of it exactly. But in 90 days from the launch, then all of those will go on the open market for sale, which will
Yeah.
also suck up a lot of the Hedron from the market as well. People trying to buy those up, outbid each other. You know as well as I do on eBay, when the last couple minutes of an auction, the price starts to tick, 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 tick. People just keep outbidding each other.
Oh, I remember
And
selling my classic Barbie dolls still in the packaging back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. Last second bids
but
coming in.
yeah, so it'll happen, and because it was free to begin with, people are going to bid higher than probably what it's worth. If you measure the monetary value of the Hedron versus what that T-share would cost you to get on your own. So it could be interesting. We'll see what happens, man. But I'm
Yeah.
happy that the whole ecosystem kind of took off, gave us a reason to hold it and do different things with it rather than just mint it and sell it.
Yeah, and I think Hedron, I mean, it's such an understated thing. I mean, like Hex already is such a great product that everybody that's involved with it loves. And now you add in this kind of liquidity with stakes. That's the big thing with the stakes is that's it. They're there forever. If there's any, I don't consider it a downside or a negative, and I know you don't either, but if there's anything that somebody who doesn't really understand the Hex contract could say about it, or that doesn't fully understand it, it would be that like, oh, you mean if I do like a 10-year stake, I'll lose everything if I unstake it early? Well, like, yeah, but that's why you understand the contract to begin with and don't
Yeah.
over invest in it. But now the fact that you actually added this kind of liquidity with Hedron, I think the sky might be the limit with this thing. And I think it's really, as far as something that is not Hex, but just something helping out Hex, the best thing that we have seen yet, that's associated with it. And, where the all-time highs so far for Hedron's price, and it was back in March. That's when the price goes back until anyway on the charts. But its all-time high is right around the 5 zeros and a 7. So whatever you want to call that number. So we're about 50% down from that right now. And I think we'll probably go lower. I think we get back into the mid 2s and maybe even down into the 1s again. But the price has been so hot, and it's really been, it's really been holding its own in this market over the last 6 months. So I don't think this is something just to purely mint off your Hex stakes. I do think it's something to be investing in.
Well, I would like to add one thing. As far as I'm concerned, because it is built around Hex, the one thing I don't want to see is people just say, oh, well, this is going to go up. I'm not going to even bother with Hex. I still recommend getting your Hex and minting your Hedron for free. Get both, right? Don't just skip the part that really matters, and that's your T-shares, and FOMO your money into. That's the one thing I don't like about the extra coins, but is what it is, right?
No, I certainly get that. I mean, like if you're thinking of I'm purely talking about Hedron being like a small portion of a portfolio, like probably sub 5% or something like that. But yeah, obviously Hex is the main thing here, and getting the free Hedron is just a nice bonus as well. So, but not to underrate what I think this token could do long term. I think it's really interesting. Have you actually have you watched some of the Crypto Sloth videos? He's become like the Hedron guy really on YouTube. Have you checked him out at all?
I've seen a little bit of his stuff. I haven't given it a whole lot of attention. I forget who he was on with, and it almost became, I don't want to say combative. He was sticking up for the Hedron, and somebody else was kind of saying what I just said, as to buy the Hex first, get your free Hedron. He was kind of the other way around, saying, well, what, just buy the Hedron. You get more of it at this point, and your price appreciation could be much higher. Well, again, I'm still sold on T-shares is where it's at, where you need to be. All the other stuff is icing on the cake,
Right.
And who knows, if you buy Hedron, you may not get airdrops later. There's a lot of Hex people that are creating things that will continue to create things based on that T-share. I think the long-term play is definitely buy your T-shares and get all the other free stuff that comes with it. So
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100% there. So you heard it here first. Crypto Ewok, not a fan of crypto sloth. So there you go.
I did not
Just
say
messing with
that.
you. But yeah, no,
Sloth.
I do think is it now I just forgot his name. Is it Crypto? What is it? Is it Crypto Sloth? I just said that. Now I forget his name already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Crypto Sloth.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, his Hedron stuff is very good, but no, I totally get where you're coming from. Yeah, you don't want to lose sight, and that's what happens in crypto so often because there's so many great gains to be made in
Sure.
all of these different things that people like just want to have all of them, and that's how you get these portfolios that have like 25 coins in them, which I think is terrible. And it's like, okay, I got to have this wallet for this one, this wallet for that one, this exchange, this one goes on a DEX, and I couldn't keep track of that. That's why I think like the best portfolios are like sub
Simple.
8 coins. Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. I know.
Easy to manage. Right. I mean, obviously, the longer you're in, the more things you're going to acquire that are valuable if you play it right and don't wreck yourself. But back to what you're saying too, though, man, people are bored.
Yeah.
And they're not going to listen. They're not going to listen to my advice, your advice. I hope they do.
Well, it's not financial advice, so they should.
Well, it's
right?
not. It's not. It's just been around the block a couple times.
Yeah.
You can take my advice or not. It's not financial advice, but don't think you know more just because you just walked into this space, and
Right.
doesn't usually work out too well. You learn from the people that have been there and done it, telling you things for a reason. So.
And it's very easy to get yourself wrecked here. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. So, I mean, either way, one thing we agree on is for the majority of things right now, I don't want to say the majority, but for a lot of things that you have long-term conviction in, if you're buying them right now, you're doing yourself pretty well. But yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up, I think, for this episode. Like I said, next week is a big week, and I know, we're not short-term investors, so I don't mean to keep harping on like, oh, the FOMC meeting is next week. Well, what's Powell going to say? Like, I'm not just a lapdog for what the Fed says, but it is going to have a big short-term effect, which is going to have a midterm effect, which is going to have a long-term effect. And, I think that if you have been sitting on the sidelines most of this bear market or just tiptoeing in, which is kind of more like what I've been doing, the big buys are still to come. And I've been licking my chops for a few weeks here, actually for all of the summer. And I just, I'm excited to see where we go. So anything else from you, Ewok? Anything else you want to add on tonight's program?
I don't believe so. Save your dry powder. It's coming, guys. It's coming. The best time to get in. Hopefully right around the corner. Couple more months and we'll be there. So keep your job. Don't retire. Don't live your life on crypto quite yet. Keep those income streams coming so that you do have the dry powder when that opportunity stares you right in the face and you can make life-changing wealth.
Absolutely. Yep. And I am Broke Boi Crypto. I just released, actually, we're just talking about Hex. I released a staking Hex for beginners video just last night. So if you are new to it, if you're hearing it on this podcast, you don't know what Hex is somehow, go ahead and check that out. I think I did a pretty good job, right, Ewok? Just kind of going over the basics. It's a bare bones one. It's a basic one. It's a primer, but I think it does pretty well to kind of explain the Hex contract and get a first timer.
Yeah.
Pop their cherry, if you will.
Sure. I enjoyed it. I watched it not long after you posted it. And I did add a comment that, that you didn't say it, but, alluded to it.
You trying to say I messed up here? Are you trying to say I messed up?
No, you just didn't bring something up that is important part of it. Right. And that's that the increased T-share rate you don't get after 10 years But it is super important to consider locking it in for those extra 5 years, because that is where the true compounding will actually happen. Because if you do the math on it, at 10 years, you'll never get near the share rate at that point to buy back in to be even close to it. So locking it up for that extra time past those 10 years is where you'll see people start to fall off, and you actually start to earn a bigger portion of that pie. I know you read the one part of it where it says, if you have 10% and there's 100, you're getting 10 over the 100, or 100 over the 10, whatever, as the portion of your payout. But just remember, as people fall out of that cycle, you're earning now more of the pie because the share rate always increases, which means you're earning more of it as people fall out and have to restake at a much worse rate. So just you by buying it and locking it in for that extra time will allow you that extra portion as people fall out of there. So anyway, It was a great video. You did a very good job. I was impressed, and
well, thank you.
Thanks for putting it out there. People needed that bare bones tutorial.
Yeah, I think that does happen because there are so many people that have been in Hex for so long that you kind of get into the more advanced game theory, and you just kind of illustrated how, it seems like it could be a simple contract, and how much is there really to talk about? Well, a lot. And there's a lot of different things and ways that you can do it. And like I just said, kind of game theory it. And that's why I did think it'd be good to just kind of do like a nice introduction to, how to actually do it. And of course, there's plenty of videos on YouTube as well as how to actually buy Hex, if you've never done it. So, I'll leave that to other people too. You can check all that out.
The one other thing I forgot to mention is I would do your longer stakes first and lock that rate in, and then work your way backwards, as opposed to getting a little bit, putting it in for a year, getting more, do 2 years, getting more. So lock your best rate in for the longest term now. It'll pay off longer or better in the long run, and then work your way back to whatever your ladder is, so that whenever, even if it's a year down the road, that first one that comes out, you can pop that then to the end of that 15-year, take some profit, and continue the race. But it'll get you closer as you work toward it, instead of working away from it, because you'll always be playing catch up if you don't do that. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't hear people say that too often, so that's a good one too. But all right, well, hey, we covered a lot here tonight. We got the ETH Merge, we got FOMC meetings next week. It's a boring time of the bear market, but boy, we're gonna have some interesting times here ahead, I think, over the next 2 months or so. So a lot still to come. For my co-host, Crypto Ewok, this is our first ever live stream. More of them to come as well. I'm going to try to get a more consistent schedule with the podcast, and we will be live streaming all of them as well. So you can find Crypto Ewok on Twitter. Well, you go ahead and give out your Twitter and your YouTube.
Yeah, it's all at Crypto Ewok, Twitter, YouTube. Easy enough.
Yep. And I am at Broke Boi, BOI Crypto on YouTube and Twitter. Check both of us out. But that is going to do it for the episode. We will catch y'all next time on the Creed of Crypto podcast. Take it easy, guys.